Welcome back to Enlighten Up for episode 32, Bad Behavior, Math and Science in Your Feelings, and Brian's Love Experiment. We are officially welcoming Brian to the show full time, so expect to have him on every episode here on out, as we thought it was important to bring another skeptic viewpoint into the conversation. It levels out the playing field for Michael a little bit, and it brings in more diverse ideas and beliefs, and it creates for a more in-depth conversation, which we're all excited about. And of course, in this episode, Brian's going to ask, why is it so much easier to behave badly than not? And we're going to get into that conversation about negative programming and how to deprogram ourselves into a more loving, actionable way. And of course, this leads us to the idea of Brian math and sciencing his feelings into a love experiment, which he is going to report back his findings to us in the next episode, which we are very much looking forward to hearing about. And of course, this episode does get heated because there are some raw feelings that come out, and we honor those feelings. We like to keep things very real on this show. We are not trying to be someone we're not. And so the conversation is very real. And we really do invite you to listen in and see how four friends can have differing opinions and beliefs. And at the end of the day, after an argument, still laugh and love one another. So let's jump into the episode and find out what we all had to say. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Enlighten Up. We're listening to episode 32, and I am here with Lisa and Michael, and today we are joined again by Lisa's husband, Brian. Brian,
Hi,
good
everyone.
to have you back.
Yeah, great to be back.
Yeah. We always like having an extra skeptic on the show.
Well, I don't know how much. I was thinking about it earlier today, this idea that popped into my head when we were out the other night. And I don't know if it's about being skeptical, or at least what I'm going to hear from you, because I have a thesis, and we'll hear what you and Lisa have to say about it. And I don't know if it's about being skeptical. Maybe it's just about skeptical of the whole world. I don't know.
But not about being skeptical.
Yeah. Skeptical about people and their behaviors.
All right, well, let's just get into it then. Why don't you let the audience know what we were talking about?
Well, I was wondering, I was thinking about, you guys talk about it a lot, and it's choices and doing good and good behavior. And I was thinking that it sure seems to me like it's easier to be bad. And I don't mean it in a way like, oh, I'm going to go rob a bank. But, we talked about it's supposed to be easier to smile, or it uses less muscles to smile. But I think a lot of people just don't smile, and we're down in the mouth. And it got me thinking, well, it's easier to be mean. It's easier to send negative thoughts than happy thoughts. Lisa and I were just driving here home today, and this guy, kind of did something, stupidly while he was driving, and I immediately said, "What an idiot!" And I mean, that is a negative thought. That is negative energy. The guy's probably smart, and I called him an idiot, and I'm struggling with issues with my ex-wife, and I had been actively, now I know this is not necessarily good, but I had been actively sending her negative energy.
But it's honest, and that's good.
But both you and Lisa said, well, you should send her love, and it got me thinking, why is that so hard? If we're supposed to be programmed to do good, or maybe that's a question for you guys, are we programmed to be good? If there is a creator or a divine being in charge of everything, why wouldn't our default reaction be happiness and joy rather than anger and contempt?
I think it's because we're programmed that way since the time we're little.
I think this goes back to even to the biblical times of Adam and Eve, the tree of knowledge. You're not supposed to bite from it. And we bite from it, and it teaches us that, okay, that was knowing too much, believing too much of the wrong things really can put us in a certain direction that just really puts us in a negative attitude. But negativity is an addiction, just like positivity could be. I just think it's a lot easier to be addicted to negative things. I think it's a lot easier to join a hate club than a love club. I think it's a lot easier to be against somebody than be for somebody. I think we live in an individual life where we fight over our individuality or trying to help other people's individuality. So it's just a matter of, I don't know, like trying to figure out what brings you the most joy in life, but also what's the easiest path. Unfortunately, what brings you the most joy in life is probably most likely not the easiest path. That's my instant reaction, if you want it like that. But
I completely agree. That was what I had been thinking about. Is it's easier to behave this way, but when you stop and think about it, like we are right now, it shouldn't be. It should be easier to be nice and full of love, and I don't see that in society.
I almost put it in, Brian. I almost put it in different terms. Like, it's easier to eat like shit than it is to eat healthy.
Well, okay,
absolutely.
You feel better in the long run eating healthy. It's just easier, and you have that instant gratification of eating like shit that ultimately leads you to not happiness. So it's like, choose one path that's instantly easy or the other path that's long-term better. I don't know.
I think that's a great parallel, and it makes sense when you put it in those terms.
But I think it's about habits. Okay. I really think it comes down to habits. So once you start eating healthily, and you do for a long time, when you don't eat healthy, you feel like shit. So I think it's just, once you start giving love and thinking loving thoughts and stuff.
Yeah, but we're not born like that, Lisa. It's like you're not born to want to eat peas and broccoli.
But why though? Why do you think that's the case?
I feel like when we're juvenile with our minds, we just go for the instant gratification. Just like the problem, in my opinion, the problem with our society is we look for that instant gratification.
And that's exactly like what we've been talking about on the last couple of episodes about the Matrix and how we're all being deceived to believe that happiness found in instant gratification.
And I also think that we believe that we only have like so much love to give. And we've actually talked about this in other shows, the one that Brian was on, that, that we can't love multiple people at the same time. And, there's only so much love in us. And that, for something like the example Brian gave of, his ex-wife, we're also programmed to believe you break up with someone, you divorce someone, you're supposed to not like that person, and I feel like that's something that we're taught, that, oh no, you got to save your love for the good people. Like,
well, that's not why I don't like her. I don't like her because she's a raging bitch.
Well, there's that. But I don't know. I just think that we can't give love somehow. That we're not supposed to love our enemies.
It's very challenging. You guys both said that to me the other night when I had this idea or this thought experiment. You both reminded me that you have an infinite amount of love to share, and it's hard. And I'm not opposed to it. It makes sense. It sounds good on paper. Send positive energy, get positive energy. But it's so much easier, or even to not send anything. To either do something, say something negative in my mind, or to not think about it at all is so much easier than it feels like going out of my way to send the love. Like driving down the road, somebody cuts you off. It would sound weird if you sent that person love. If you're just sitting there by yourself, or you've got a car full of people, if somebody cuts you off, oh, blessings to you. Okay. That would be strange, and we flip people off and we yell at them and call them idiots or worse.
Okay, I have to tell you honestly, I've been practicing this driving thing for a long time, that doing just what you said, where I'm just going, oh, you must need more room, or, there's just, oh, that's fascinating. What a fascinating driver, and really not allowing myself to let stupid drivers upset me. I recognize that they are poor drivers.
So you don't do that when I'm in the car, though, so I find that interesting.
Do I call them idiots?
Maybe.
Maybe?
You didn't disagree when I call them idiots.
Well, I'm not going to, right. But that's not my first thought anymore. My first thought isn't really, oh, you're an idiot, or that guy's stupid. I have been training myself to think more thoughts like, oh, that's fascinating, or that guy must not be paying attention, or, something, but less negative thoughts. And the more and more I pay attention, I think it's just like training your mind. We have to retrain ourselves to think more positive and give loving thoughts.
But why aren't we programmed the other way? Why?
I think we are when we get here.
We should be full of love as our default, not full of angst.
Don't you think babies are full of love? Like they don't discriminate. Babies love everything, and
so we share
we're taught by our parents.
We've taught by our parents how to behave. You see your dad flipping somebody off, ergo, you flip somebody off.
Right. What do you think, Nicole?
No, I totally agree. When we come into this world, we're the babies, like they have no judgment. There's no fear. All there is love. And so we are programmed to be wired a different way through what we just said, through the people that we interact with, society, all of that stuff. And so Lisa's was completely right on the money when we have to rewire our thinking, our brain. And so training yourself to do something differently after for so many decades, you've done it like a different way. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of work, but, it's one of those things where I believe that the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And it's one of those things where, we talked about this eating thing, and I used that analogy on you on Saturday on how, you've been eating healthier, and when you go to eat crap food, you do feel like shit, and it's not exactly the thing you always want to reach for. And me personally, like, I much prefer to eat healthier than junk food. But that's because I've been training myself like that since I was 17.
Me too.
I gave up like fast food, the majority of fast food in my teen years. That was a choice I made. So, for the last 20 plus years, I've been training myself to crave healthy food. I actually crave vegetables. So I don't know. Like, I just think it's something that we have to make a conscious choice of now because we've been so unconsciously programmed to be the opposite.
I think it's almost like taking your life back. Like, once you realize, okay, just because we're behaving this way and we're doing this and this is automatic for us, this isn't necessarily the choice I want to make. This isn't bringing me joy. This isn't bringing me happiness, and then once you decide I want to make a change, then you do have to start working on changing those habits. And then things become easy. It becomes easier, whether it's a healthy eating lifestyle or exercise program or just thinking good thoughts about people.
Yeah, like Brian,
absolutely.
Your reaction, Brian, to like the drivers is a reaction, and so
right.
We have to learn to become less reactionary and be more actionary, and that goes with love.
And then there's, we also talked on Saturday about the reason why you do that. It's also the law of oneness. We are. If you want to get deeper spiritually into it, we are all one. So anything that you send out to someone else, you're only sending to yourself. And we want to give ourselves love. How do you want to be treated? It goes back to this basic that we've heard since we were kids. We're taught the golden rule, but no one ever really teaches us. No one ever is really an example of it.
But 84% of the world population is a part of a faith, an organized faith in one way or another, where that tenet is the cornerstone of a lot of them. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And yet here we are having this conversation because I don't see that out in the world. And we're learning this as children, but we're not getting it. We're not practicing it.
I think we're being told, as children, but the actions of people around us are not showing us that, which are more important. Like you can, as you know, you're a parent, you can tell your kids all day long not to do something or to do something. But if you aren't doing it, like if you're telling them don't eat fast food, but they see you every day eating fast food, chances are they're going to eat fast food.
But shouldn't that percentage hold up? I mean, shouldn't we be seeing this everywhere we go? 84% of the people you run into on a day-to-day basis.
Do you think religions actually do a good job?
Obviously, they're not.
I think that's the point. Religious people are the biggest hypocrites I've ever met. People I've met that are just faithful, devout, whatever, Christians or whatever, and then I see how they treat or talk about other people.
I 100% agree.
Clearly, they're not. The religions aren't doing a good job of teaching that.
Well, no, and it's I've always been a firm believer that, you can say whatever you want to me, but I'm going to make my judgments on the actions that I'm seeing. People can say whatever they want, but it's much harder to live something than to speak it.
I mean, okay, think about let's just take one major religion like Catholicism. Treat others as you want to be treated. Everybody's equal, and then go to the Vatican, go to the Pope, and all and how they discriminate against homosexuality and
priests fondle young boys.
Right. So they're clearly showing that's they say it over here. They're talking. What's that phrase? Talking out of the side of them. I can't think of what I'm trying to say. Two-faced, hypocritical, all those things. Yeah, so they're not, they're trying to pretend like they're these people, but they're not. Their actions are completely and totally different, and that's what 84% of the population is learning from them.
I think that's very judgmental of you, Lisa. Very judgmental.
What is?
You.
The way you just made the whole Catholic Church and everybody in the Catholic Church pretty much a pedophiler. That's fucking ridiculous.
Well, I believe I'm the one that called them pedophiles.
A pedophile. I didn't say that part.
I mean, seriously, if it's one thing I learned so far in life, an organization always has bad apples, and if you judge the whole entire organization by the bad apples, it's really bad of you to think that way. And I'm not sitting there trying to say, oh, okay, the Catholic Church is all right, but you're sitting there, and I had to learn this lesson myself. It's like you can take a few bad apples and just say, you know what? All you motherfuckers are diddling little kids.
Okay, forget the homosexual part, or forget the
all you guys are saying part. Get the gays out of the Catholic Church, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that's what that organization is all about. I do feel like there's certain outspoken people in every organization, including politics of every country, including the United States, that really makes an ass of themselves when they open their mouths. However, it's really harsh to judge the entire population just on a few people. Because
I don't think we're talking about people.
I go out of the country all the time. Example, Grand Cayman the last time, and I was chastised for being American because of Donald Trump. Chastised. I'm like, you're already putting me in some sort of group that I've never belonged to in the first place. Because why? You have problems with a guy that's running the country that I belong to. I think it's just really ridiculous for people to sit there and judge everybody because of a certain few actions of an organization.
Okay, but
I don't think we're talking about a few people, though. Because if we're only talking about a few bad apples, our experiences of humanity would be much more positive than it is.
So you're saying, I mean, I'm not just saying a few people in the Catholic Church. Like I said, forget the fondling part. Obviously, the Catholic Church didn't, think that was a good thing, and they weren't promoting that. That was just a handful or maybe more of priests that were doing that. But as far as some of the like discriminating against, not really treating everybody equally, that is just a known fact of a lot of religions. Like
a known fact of a lot of organizations, of politicians. I mean, for God's sakes, the Democrats really believed in slavery. And it wasn't for the Republicans to free them that made it happen. But now, today, we believe the Democrats are so against slavery, or whatever that word is. But like, that's the point of the whole fact. That's the whole point of, like, you judge something on basis of organization and what they go for. It's not going to lead you anywhere. I really don't like judging people on organization. I like to judge people more. First of all, I'm not supposed to judge people, but if I did have to judge people, I'd like to judge them individually at the very most.
Well, we're just talking about why people behave more negatively than positively. And we're saying that actions speak louder than words. And some of the larger organizations in our society do not have positive, loving actions. Like, out of one side of their mouth, they're telling you to treat people as you want to be treated, follow the golden rule and all that. But their actions are different. That's all we're really saying.
And I don't think we can let slide the Republicans freed the slaves. I just want to make sure there's some sort of asterisk here, because I'm a history nerd. And while Abraham Lincoln was technically a Republican, the parties switched through the course of time. So what used to be called the Republican Party, of which Abraham Lincoln was a member, that party became the Democratic Party. So I don't want to give the Republicans credit for...
Does it really matter? Because Donald Trump claimed he was a Democrat in the early 90s, but now is a Republican. So, I mean, Do you really want to use that?
I'm sure he claimed that he's freed the slaves because nobody fact-checked him.
Doesn't matter if you have a D or... This is the worst thing about politics in the United States, to have a D or an R after your name.
Yeah. Or, God forbid,
I?
an L or an I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's Nicole? Nicole,
I'm just eating my popcorn right now. You know what? Like, I totally understand where Michael's coming from, but at the same time, you can't deny that there are like, what Lisa was saying was that there's a common thread here, that we're being taught to act a certain way by people who aren't being the same models. And it's not that, there's always going to be good apples and bad apples in anything, right? And we've talked about this before on multiple episodes. But I think, like, the one point that we're all trying to make is that, being the model, actually walking the walk, is what we all have to start doing in order for people to really start grasping this idea of coming from a place of love, something that comes from a much more positive place. And if we all continue to not do that, then no one's going to really learn from example, because that's clearly how we all learn. It's when we put things into action that it gets anchored into our cellular level. And that is probably one of the hardest things for us to do, is to take it out of our mind and put it into action, into our day-to-day living, into how we live our life. And
this message, though, that you're talking about has been preached for thousands of years.
Again, it's preached, it's not done.
And, and you made, as you were talking, I was thinking, we talk about this, but change begins with you. And it sounds almost cliche now and kind of silly, but it really is true. And I feel like a lot of us focus on trying to change, politics, and trying to change, religions, or we put a lot of blame there instead of just focusing on our own behavior. And I think it's a lot simpler than people realize. It comes down to the things that we talked about in the opening of the show, which is things as simple as giving love to the driver who you think is driving like an idiot, or sending love to your ex-wife when she's behaving poorly, or, your neighbor or whomever. But that's where change begins. And if you can deprogram, I should say, yourself from thinking immediate negative thoughts and not sending love, that's where change is really going to happen in the world. Instead of, really we're so good at judging people or criticizing them for not following the golden rule, or for, doing things that they should be doing, instead of just focusing on ourselves and not judging them and just saying, next time something comes up, I'm not going to judge. I'm going to send love. That's really where people can make the most difference. And I think it's just a lot simpler than people realize to truly change the world.
I mean, like, Brian, let's just go back to the episode where you were told you could melt away fat with your mind, right?
Oh, yeah, that's the last time I was on, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you tried it that night, and the next morning you...
So did you guys report that on the podcast?
Yeah, we did. We did. And
yeah, that was incredible. I actually had results, but have yet to be able to duplicate it.
Have you tried?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that, and how I believe that, he had no attachment to the outcome. He had no expectations, and so I don't think anything was blocking it. And now I think...
Right, of course. I assumed it was going to fail.
Yeah.
The first time. And then every other time, now I had expectations and...
Well, I mean, you're such a thinker, right? You're so much in your head.
Keep going, Brian.
What?
What?
I like this. Keep going, Brian. This is fun to sit back and have some popcorn myself.
No, but it's like you're such a thinker, right? You're always in your head. And so I think that in some ways that works to an advantage for you. But in like this case, you overthink it as opposed to just feeling it.
Well, yeah, because after I saw the 5-pound result, and then the next time that I tried to do it, I thought about, okay, well, did I think about it correctly the first time? Or it was interesting that I did try to think. It was like, well, okay, now I need to be even more specific about how the heat energy of my body was going to attack this fat and melt it away. Because the interesting thing about what I spent more time thinking about is, how does the body burn fat? And I was trying to think of that chemical process because I needed to visualize the chemical process correctly.
This was the first time or the second time?
Every time since.
Second, so.
The second, third, fourth, and I was like, well, I obviously did it wrong the second time. Now I'll try it a different way.
What did you do the first time?
I just imagined this idea that my body was going to create so much heat that it was going to, like melt fat or burn it away. Like it was going to create that same energy. It was going to mimic that energy. But I just thought that. And then ever since I tried to recreate it, I don't know. It hasn't been the same because I haven't seen any results. Which, from a scientific point of view, that's not a result. You throw that out. You throw that one positive thing out, and it's like, that was a fluke. Something else happened.
Love it. Your mind happened. Why did you change the recipe when it worked so well the first time?
Because I didn't remember the recipe. I wasn't sure what the recipe was. Because
the recipe wasn't in your mind. It was in your body. You were just feeling it. You weren't overthinking it. You weren't trying to think like it had to be a chemical reaction that you could visualize in your head. Like you were just going with the heat and the melting. It was very simple. And then you went and you complicated it.
Probably.
I've heard some different theories on, well, all in the same theme, but just about whether you're overweight or, you're wanting a different result. And that goes back to what we were talking. It's about sending love, like not being dissatisfied with how you look, but first loving yourself and accepting yourself for how things are. So, I think that makes a difference when you're focusing on something. Are you now thinking about it as something negative that you need to get rid of? Or, how is it that we're sending this energy? Because it has to be positive, good, love energy. So it's, I think it's a
Well,
little
I've certainly
tricky.
never been happy and full of love about the way I look when I look in the mirror. And that's not that was not my mindset when I first started that and decided to tackle the fat with energy, with my mind energy.
Go on, Michael.
Are you
say
laughing,
it.
Michael?
I'm sorry.
Well, I know that sending love, whether it be, to drivers or to family members or to whoever, I know I have seen results in my own life as a positive impact. In fact, I was driving somewhere, I think, maybe it was today, I don't remember. And I was thinking about this, about not giving drivers a hard time and focus. And I try to do that every time I drive. But, again, I'm trying to get rid of over 40 years, or I guess not that, well, probably over 40 years of a bad habit, because before I was driving, I was listening to people saying these things about drivers. So, I'm not 100% there, and I do still focus on it every time I drive, or even when Brian's driving and I'm listening to him, I'm thinking about these things. But
listening to me say nice things.
No, you're not always. But I'm not going to correct you, because I'm not trying to judge you either. I'm just personally trying to think nice things about these drivers. But I noticed today, it was funny. I was thinking about how I was feeling really good and really positive and just being grateful for absolutely everything, including this road that I was driving on and the sun that was shining today. And everybody moved out of my way. You know how when you drive in the left lane, people don't really know that the left lane of a highway is for passing. So
yeah, because they're fucking idiots. Oh, wait. I love you all.
And you usually have slower drivers there. And today it was like every driver in front of me drove perfectly. Like I was coming up on them and they put their signal on and got over and just let me cruise down this left lane. And I was like, I think this thinking positively thing is working. Like it's just making my driving experience better, because I'm enjoying my driving experience more. I'm having more positive thoughts as I drive and about other drivers and situations. And I think that it is manifesting itself as a better experience for me.
Or coincidence.
And I thought of you, Nicole, when you were driving with your mother that day, and you said, the trucks just kept moving out of the way.
Yeah.
I do think that it's energy, and I've done the same thing with people that I haven't, don't necessarily have a great relationship with. And instead of thinking about the negativity of the relationship, I've been sending love and happiness, and things are, getting better. So it works.
Yeah.
It really does work.
There's been 2 times where I've tried this, where I've been maybe at odds with someone, and going into meditation in the evening, I'll think about them, and I'll just think about sending them. I'll try to have more of a compassionate heart, try to be open-minded, send them loving energy, where sometimes what I imagine is, not only do I imagine my heart energy connecting with their heart energy, but I actually physically see their heart in my mind, and I write love on it. And both times I've done that, the next morning when I've woken up, I've had a text message from 2 different people doing that. Something to an olive branch. So it's, I definitely believe it works if the intention is coming from the right place. And I do believe that, you're in a much more positive place, Lisa, so you're vibrating at a different frequency, so things around you are going to start matching that. I had the same thing happen to me, where I was in such a good mood one morning and everything just seemed to be going my way, and I get in my car and I hit every green light. every green light where it should have been traffic at that time of day, should have been like backed up, and it was just clear sailing for 20 minutes down this road. And so I totally agree with you. I think it can happen. It's just a matter of, like you said, we got to kind of retrain ourselves to be open to that, first of all, and second of all, put it into action.
And I think it's also important that when you hit every red light and you feel like you're in a great mood, that you don't see that as, oh, this doesn't work. You know, when those things happen, I just try to say to myself, this is where I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now.
Yeah, but I also have experiences where I hit every green light because I math and science the shit out of it. You go 37 miles an hour and you're a few miles an hour over the speed limit, and it keeps you in with the cycle. That had nothing to do with my positive emotions or feelings. It had to do with the electrons firing, and they're timed, and I went the right speed.
Okay, I have a question for you, Brian.
Yeah.
Have you ever asked yourself why you like to put so much energy into math and sciencing something, but not into feeling something out?
No, I've never asked myself that, because it's harder, and I think that's the whole point of this conversation. It's harder to do the good thing, or it's harder to be introspective.
Because you haven't been trained that way.
Right.
We haven't been trained that way. And I just think it's harder for me to do some things that are, easier for you to do. But
that's personal growth. And I mean, again, we talked about, a lot of us, most people, 84% of the population grows up in some sort of household where there's some sort of tenet of faith. But that's all personal. And when I go to school, I can learn about history, and I can learn about math and science, and I have to study for those things, and I have to take tests for those things, but I don't have to take a test to be a good person. I can be an asshole if I want, or I can be a good person if I want. That's a personal choice.
That's an interesting point. The focus of what we put, the focus we put in schools of what we're teaching our children, that on really the unimportant stuff.
It's all ones and zeros. It's all data.
When the stuff that's really important, we're not teaching at all.
No.
But we've talked about that as well, because that's just the whole matrix and the way things that are set up, and it's keeping, dummying us down and keeping us from knowing our true power and what we're capable of, and that we can change the world with just our thoughts. Just by thinking positive, loving thoughts, and just by visualizing good things, and by being grateful for everything we have, that we can change our world. But we're not doing that.
We're not taught that.
No.
There's no data to support that.
Okay, so Mr. Science, why don't you try an experiment where for 7 days you set aside a specific amount of time at a specific time of day where you send loving thoughts and energy to this person and see what happens?
What person?
You pick.
Okay. How long do you have to send good energy?
What?
Do I just have to have one nice thought and
no.
virtual
it
email
has to
out
be
there,
something.
or
No, it has to be something where you are having to train yourself to be out of your comfort zone and to...
Like meditation, because I'm out of my comfort zone when I meditate. So to sit and be mindful of my thoughts and my body and my breathing and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so let's say 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Set the timer on your phone.
Hoping for 10.
You set a timer on your phone. And you just do whatever you need to do to get yourself in a very comfortable position. So,
loving thoughts for 20 minutes.
Can I drink whiskey?
See how hard? Like, why is that so hard? When I meditate and I'm thinking loving thoughts, and it just becomes where I don't want to stop. It feels so good. I feel so good. I want to just do that for the next like 3 hours. Like it just, as you do it more and more, it feels really good.
But this is the whole thing. We need to take it out of Brian's head and put it into action. So Brian, let's do a little scientific experiment. You're going to like actually you're going to monitor yourself and write down the data after every 20 minutes that you do this and keep track of it.
Like how you felt, maybe.
Okay. I'm going to choose a public person. So you guys, after I tell you who it is, you can go and find out if something changed positively in their life.
A public person? I don't understand.
What you said I could send it. You said I could send this energy to anybody I wanted. So I'm going to send it to somebody that.
But you should send it to someone you have a relationship with.
But you didn't say.
What's the rules on this?
I asked who can I send it to, and you said I can send it to anyone. And if I choose a public person, anyone can Google their name and find out what positive thing happened to them.
This is very interesting. I find this very interesting that you'd like to go outside of someone you have actual feelings for and do something completely where you're sending feelings.
Isn't this what you guys are preaching, though?
I'm
with Brian on this
my
one.
scientific approach, the first question I asked was, who do I send it to? And you guys both said anyone.
Exactly. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, no, I understand. Calm down over there, Michael. But it's very interesting.
This is like such popcorn material for me. I'm just loving it.
Okay, but it's very interesting that
it is interesting.
You guys like to think a
Michael,
little bit too much. I think
it.
Brian is on the right case.
So the magic doesn't work if you don't know the person, if you don't have a relationship with them?
I think that the magic would work, but I think it would be a lot harder to really determine the results because they're a public figure. You have no personal relationship with them. You're only bound by what's posted on the
Okay,
news.
can I finish what I was trying to say before Michael interrupted me?
Really?
This is why I find it very interesting, is that part of the reason why this is hard for you to send loving thoughts to someone that you're not maybe in a loving feeling way with them is to overcome that. And you've chosen someone you have no feelings for regardless. So it's going to be so much easier for you to have loving thoughts for them. Why would you do that? Like, why wouldn't you actually put yourself in a position where you could really change something in your life?
Well, I can tell you one public figure that I don't have any loving thoughts for.
That's not what she's asking.
She's
asking you, why would you, when this was about.
Because it's about science and it's about proving it. And if I send loving thoughts to some person that I know, how can I prove that their life was...
No. This isn't about science, and this isn't about proving it. This is about using the method of science and data to show you that you can make an effective change through your feelings, and you're choosing not to do that.
This is only about me being changed. I thought it was about... the other person is being changed.
But it's about you and this other person, and you're removing yourself out of the equation.
It's about you and the other person, the relationship that you have, the feelings that you have. Like Nicole was giving an example. She sends love, and then she gets a text from this person. So she could see that her thoughts were having an impact.
Brian, under the rules that Nicole and Lisa have said, these are what you have to do. These are the rules that nature lives by.
Okay, so I will send my magic to somebody I know that I don't have happy thoughts for, and that's a very short list.
Okay.
Lisa says it's 3 people. Oh, who's the third?
Did you want me to say it on the air?
Well, I don't know.
No, I don't. Let's not.
Michael
Okay, but do you understand where I'm coming from, Brian?
Yeah, I do. I do understand where you're coming from. But from a scientific point of view, it
shouldn't matter.
It should not matter. Exactly. If this is a real thing, if energy is a real thing that can
We're
affect
starting small.
change,
Absolutely.
then I should be able to send it to anyone.
No, okay.
I agree, but I feel like, go ahead, Nicole.
You're still missing the point, Brian. This isn't just about proving something works. It's about...
Well, hang on a second. This conversation started with you calling me Mr. Math and Science.
Yes,
So
because I'm
this
giving
is
you an
about
opportunity to use math and science to take the data, okay, from you implementing something into action that you are not used to doing or is very uncomfortable, you find very difficult. That's what this is all about. This whole conversation started about why is it more difficult to do loving things than not. And so I'm giving you an opportunity to use your math and science to monitor this actual action into action. And you try to make it easy on yourself, is what I'm saying. And
no, I wasn't trying to make it easy on myself. I was trying to make it something that we could prove or disprove, because any of the listeners could Google that person once we say the name, and they could see did they have a great week.
How do they know that? Just because? So if somebody doesn't post that they had a good week on the internet, then that means that they didn't.
They're a public person. There's always information about who they are.
But
anyway,
you don't know.
I wasn't trying to make it easy on myself. I was trying to make it something provable.
You are trying to take away the action of loving someone you don't right now.
I think it's still provable. Like if you did this with someone who is, say, a coworker or a friend or a relative, it's provable. Like if you're presently don't have a great relationship with them and you keep sending love to them and then something changes, maybe you get a note from them or a text or an email or a phone call or something, you can say, hey, how weird. I haven't had a great relationship with this person. I've been sending them love and suddenly I got a phone call from them.
Well,
you know what, Brian?
There's only one person on that list then. Go ahead.
Can I just tell you, I'm going to send you love and light to you, Brian, because clearly Nicole and Lisa are sending some negative shit towards you. So I'm going to send you some love and light to you and make it happen.
That's great. I'm gonna gather that energy and I'm gonna multiply it.
Michael, I love that you take tough love as negativity.
I really think you guys are barking up the wrong tree, though. You're trying to curb your bets. You're trying to hedge them.
Well, no, there's only one person that I'm gonna that meets all of these criteria, and that's my daughter, who hasn't talked to me in almost a year. So if I send her loving energy 20 minutes a day for 7 days, and I get a text message, that'll be really easy to prove.
Now be careful though, because I've gone down this rabbit hole of trying to prove something with like that theory, and when it becomes up not so good, it just disappoints me so much. So
yeah, no,
just keep your eyes open and keep your attitude open to everything.
And I'm glad to do that because I already know the outcome, and maybe that's negative for me to say, but
it is. You have to have an open mind.
Why would she change?
I don't know. You have to have an open mind.
I will go and, well, I guess.
There's someone. Yeah. Never mind.
Okay. I will start tomorrow.
Okay.
With an open mind and an open heart.
With the right intention. That sets the tone for everything.
Set your intention.
Okay, and I may have questions for you two privately. You two being Nicole and Lisa.
Not Michael?
That was not one of them.
About how I'd go about doing this effectively.
Well,
fair enough.
It's going to be less about your mind and more about your heart.
And how you feel. Sending feelings of love and feelings of whatever, forgiveness, anything that has to do with love.
So when you said, Nicole, you said earlier you will picture that person's heart. Do you mean the like beating, fleshy muscle heart, you picture that in your mind?
Yep.
Or do you picture the paper cutout heart?
I've done both, actually.
Me too. I've done both. You know, it's funny. I was thinking, I usually think I've been sending my ex-husband like big hearts, the cutout hearts, since we got divorced. Like when I think of him, I try to, in quiet time, like, or if a bad thought comes up, I try to replace it with just send him a big fucking heart. And I saw this commercial. Actually,
He hasn't talked to you since.
Those aren't my intentions. My intentions are not for him to talk to me. I'm not asking for him to talk to me. I'm just...
Wait, you're not just sending energy, you're asking for something as a part of it?
Well, you're setting your intention, like Nicole said. You know, your intention is to have a relationship with your daughter and speak to her. I'm not setting that intention with my ex-husband. I really don't care if I ever...
Okay, so I'm not just sending love. I have to put out there what I want in return?
No. First of all, love has no expectations and there are no conditions. So you cannot do that, or else you're not actually sending love.
So what does it mean when you say you set your intentions?
Your intention is just to okay, so I'll send the intention of finding either forgiveness or understanding or compassion for that other person, trying to remove the ego and just see things from a much more loving place. Like I don't know how else to describe it.
That's what I want that person to do. I want that person to have those intentions.
No, you have to have those intentions for yourself with that person.
Okay.
You know, and I do that to my ex-husband, but I've never expected anything in return. I'm not asking him for anything. I'm just wanting to not send negative energy to him and send loving energy. I want him to find peace and I want him to find healing, and I hope he finds another partner that makes him happy and, you know, all those things, and maintains a good relationship with our children. And, you know, I don't know if what I've been doing is working. I haven't tried to find out, but maybe it is, you know?
I think the important thing to remember, Brian, where I'm really sensing that you're going to trip yourself up, is through having an expectation for you to get a response from her because of this.
So you're
Well, I was getting tripped up on the word intention, because that's...
Your intentions are unconditional love. Your intentions are just to love her where she's at and send her love and let her know that she is loved by you.
Okay. Yeah, like if you put the intention that you are expecting a phone call or a text or something like that.
You guys tested him, though. You asked him to put it to thought, and how are you going to say, oh, but don't expect anything? That was like, this is ridiculous, because you just told him, do something, and you should have some sort of result. Oh, but don't expect anything.
You're assuming, though, that that's the only result possible. First of all, you can't send love with an expectation. It's not love then.
That's conditional love. When we love people and we do things with the...
So how is he going to prove any kind of whatever you guys are trying to make him prove? Nothing. He can't prove it at all. He's going to have to wait till he dies, and all of us die.
How do you don't know that. You're assuming. You're making so many assumptions right now before it's even started.
You guys are making so many assumptions that he's going to...
No, you see, this is very typical. What Michael's doing right now is very typical of sabotaging something before it's even started.
That's just, you guys made him say you should do something for the next, couple weeks or whatever, and you should see the results. And now you're saying, well, don't expect anything from the results.
Yeah, so I don't understand. I don't understand what your problem is with that.
Don't expect specific
Forget it, guys. I will just shut up and go back to my corner. Don't worry about it.
No, Michael, what we're saying is don't expect specific results. You know, when you put out love to, say, drivers or whatever, I don't expect anything in particular to happen other than it to be, you know, a better experience for me when I'm out there driving. That's my expectation, that I'm going to continue to send love to these drivers and not be judgmental against them, and just enjoy my ride no matter what happens and what people...
And why would you guys ask him and ask him, like, let's see what you experience after doing this if you
Because
don't expect any results?
we believe there will be some positive result, but we're not going to say.
Okay, so we're going on the
what
belief that you
it's
believe there's something going to happen.
No, I don't agree with Lisa.
Oh.
You don't agree that there should be some positive result?
No, I don't agree. That's why I'm asking Brian to do that. I'm asking Brian to do it because I'd like to see him go outside his comfort zone and try something he's not used to doing. I'd like to see him try something that is not analytical, but has to do with more feeling, and to observe it from something that he's comfortable with, like through math and science. So he's going to do it in a math and science way of how he's going to record the data and have a specific time of day and all of that. But the actual action, you know what? This is the whole thing.
I guess I got tripped up on the word math and science because the whole key to math and science is results. You do something, something happens.
Yeah, but you don't know what the results are going to be. The results could be a shift in you, and it have nothing to do with her. And that shift could change you in a very dramatic way that you weren't expecting. And so all I'm saying is just record, keep everything do everything in the math and science way. If you're going to do it on a specific time at 20 minutes a day, you're going to sit in the same place, you're going to listen to the same music, you're going to just have the same protocols and do that, but allow yourself when you're in there, like do all of those things that your analytical mind needs. But when you actually go into the action, that you're totally coming from a place within your feelings. And that is where the work's going to be.
Okay, I understand. It makes sense.
So you're saying that there will be no specific result from necessarily that person that he's sending love to. It could happen, but it also could just be within himself.
Yeah, there are so many things that could happen. We don't know what's going to happen, and I think that's the beauty of it. I think that's the exciting part. We don't know what's going to happen, but I think the most exciting thing is that Brian's willing to try something he's not really used to doing or comfortable doing, and I think that's the thing to celebrate the most right now.
Let me reinterpret what they're saying, Brian. Expect something, but maybe not.
Is that a new word, reinterpretate?
Expect some result, but if it doesn't happen, don't worry. It happened. Maybe you don't know it.
It will be interesting, just like putting myself out for the Akashic record. It'll be interesting.
Yes.
You're a real trooper, babe. He did marry me, so he knew, he was stepping into some unknown things.
I knew I'd have to meditate at least once.
I asked him the other night as we were falling asleep. I said, do you ever, you lie here every night. He says sometimes it takes him an hour to fall asleep. I said, do you ever try, meditating? Just, for like 10 minutes? And he said, no. So I said, why don't you give it a try? Since you're always lying awake thinking, he's designing things in his mind and planning and imagining all these things. And I said, give it a try. And he says, okay. And then you can finish the story. What happened next?
I really don't put me on the spot like that. Why don't you finish the story?
I'm a noisy sleeper.
Oh, that's right. So then I'm laying there and I'm trying to relax, and Lisa talks in her sleep and she light languages in her sleep, and all of a sudden, and she yells out and makes this really sound, or she slams the bed, and it's like, well, there's no peace and quiet in my mind.
So I woke up in the morning. I'm like, so did you try it? And he's like, well, I started to, but then I fall asleep and then I jump and I hit him and I start speaking light language. I was like, okay, fair enough.
Maybe that's why I have a hard time falling asleep.
So no meditating when we go to bed. I think I need to be removed from the room. I'm too noisy.
Yeah, removing all distractions is key.
But actually, circling back to the original topic of our conversation, I really just think that if I had to summarize at least my point of view with the three of you, is I feel like the best rewards really come from you doing something that you're not supposed to do, or doing something that you're exercising to do. For example, is exercise, eating, all the fun, all the things that you don't like, but really makes your life well worth it. That's what you have to do. I really do believe it with spirituality as well. You got to do some certain things that you really don't want to do, but eventually it pays off big time.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Outside of your comfort zone.
Things that are outside your comfort zone.
I mean, I still don't believe in meditation. I don't. It's not for me, I don't think. However, it could be for somebody else. Just like, certain exercises or certain eating ways or certain whatever is for some people, not for others. But like, I think disciplining yourself in some way makes you feel like you achieved something. If you just got 4 aces with the cards that God dealt you, what's the point of playing the game every time? But when you get like crappy cards and you really have to work at it to win the pot, that's the beauty of life. I think that's what it is. And so enjoy life, but also enjoy the frustrations, the disappointments, and the challenges that you have to go through. I've lost a shitload in my life, but I feel like the things that I've lost in my life, meaning like the things that happened to me, I've learned so much from. And I always tell the people that I educate on a daily basis, you learn 10 times easier when you fall down on your face than when you succeed on your first try. And that's, I think, what life really is.
Wow, that was enlightening.
Yeah. Bravo.
No, seriously. I love the part about just enjoying the challenges. And again, I take that down to, I think it's important that we understand that those are the very simplest things that happen throughout our day. We're not talking about big things, little things, traffic lights to, I don't know, spilling a glass of water across the table like I did just before this podcast started, and just, enjoying the little things, not judging when you feel, not judging things as being bad necessarily, Yeah,
I don't remember the last time I had roid rage. I really don't. I think it was like in my mid-20s or early 20s. I don't get it anymore. If like someone wants to cut me off, apparently they got somewhere else to go. And that's the way I believe it. It's just that I think that's how life works. You just gotta get used to it and let people happen.
Yeah, so I hope our listeners, if anything, take away from this podcast that, they can be in control of their own happiness, just by changing the way that you look at the little things that are going on in your day.
Yeah. I mean, perception is reality, so you can change that just by shifting your perception.
Yes.
And I have tons of stories about that when in regards to girls or relationships, but those are just like, everybody goes through those things. But it's easier to deal with, road conditions.
Well, what are your relationship ones? Give us one.
One thing I know about trying to, I'm not a really good person to talk about this with Nicole. I'm not in a relationship. I haven't been in a relationship for quite a while. So
that doesn't mean you haven't learned anything.
Of knowing about relationships.
Doesn't mean you haven't learned anything.
I learned, obviously we all learn eventually that there's no perfect person. And I feel like not only is there no perfect person, but like you actually look for the imperfections of a person and see how you could, like, in a way, like a puzzle piece, fit in their life. Meaning like their imperfections they have and the imperfections you have and how they fit in to make it in a way of like a perfect puzzle. Super sappy of me, super weird of me, but I feel like you have to find the right type of combination of people where like it fits. And I feel like, you know what? I feel like we should just probably put this off to another podcast and make it happen, because I have a lot to say about this stuff, but like I can't summarize it in like 1 minute or less. But
you don't need to summarize it in 1 minute or less. Go for it.
I just feel like there's not one person for you, but there's a certain combination that really works out well for you. And as long as you figure out your lock or your key, perhaps, then you can figure out the lock that you need to look for when it comes to another person in your life.
Why do you think that makes you sappy or weird?
Because I'm a middle-aged man that is pretty much over 6 when it comes to relationships.
And that's what makes it sappy or weird to talk about these things?
Yeah, because what credit do I have to live on? I got nothing to stand on. I got nothing to say, hey, look, I did it right. No, I could be completely wrong. I got nothing to prove.
How would you prove it?
I don't know. I mean, like, you prove it when you're like kicking back with your friend or woman that you've been married for 6 years, and you both are kicking the bucket at the same time, and you're like, oh yeah, we did a good job, high five, and then we die. And that's how I can prove it, but I can't do it right now.
I mean that's, again, that's society laying down those type of rules. I was married for 25 years, so at 24 and a half years, people were like, wow, what a great job you've done. You guys have been married 25 years.
So did you really believe, Lisa, out of 25 years, a certain significant percentage was like, yes, I made the right decision. This is perfect?
No, she thought it was the wrong decision for pretty much most of the marriage.
So it doesn't matter when it comes to years.
I won't say that I thought it was the wrong decision. I thought I had made the right decision because I felt guided to do what I had done. I don't necessarily still really understand the whole relationship, but I think that things are a lot different than this 3D perspective that we have on things, that you have succeeded once you find this perfect person and you got
I didn't say succeeded. Dream. I just said fulfilled a certain chapter, I would imagine.
It sounds like you need to find some time, maybe 20 minutes a day for a week, and send some love energy to some of these women, or a particular woman that you're interested in.
Or to yourself.
You know what, Brian? I'll do that, and I'll report back to you in 2 weeks.
That's great.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Ooh, 2 weeks is all we got. 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
All right, 2 weeks.
But again, I think that, and we've talked about this on other podcasts, and maybe this should be a whole nother one again, I don't know, but just how we believe that there's supposed to be a certain outcome of things to show that we've succeeded. Who's to say that the person who has been married 4 different times
Lisa, you're saying this, but you also keep claiming on these podcasts that you found your twin flame and everything's all good to go. I mean, like, really, what does it mean to me when you say this stuff?
Everything is.
I'm happy right now, is what I'm saying. You got your twin to go on right now. Okay, and in 15 years when we get a divorce, I can say those I say those are the
way to put that out there.
Best 15 years of my life. And I wouldn't have got divorced, so that doesn't make sense.
I think, okay, here's the thing. This is what these are my 2 cents on the whole thing. We believe that in order for us to have an educated opinion or frame of reference on something, that we have to be somewhat of an expert in it. And by expert, meaning like a PhD in life in that particular area, in order to offer some sort of advice to someone else. Right? Would you guys agree? Like, that's kind of a common concept, idea that people believe?
Yes, that's a common concept and belief.
So, and that's why so many people who have had experiences or have come across insights that have come through their own internal work, or, maybe some experiences just from them observing their own life, that when they want to go share it, whether it's maybe one day they'd like to write a book, maybe they'd like to start a blog talking about it, maybe, they'd like to move their career in that kind of direction, the first thing that comes up is, well, who's going to listen to me? What do I have to show that gives someone a reason to take notice of me? And we instantly think that we have no value, because society has taught us that we need to have some sort of diploma or some sort of accreditation. I can't say the word. Accreditation? I don't know. We need some sort of credit behind us that proves to people that we're worth listening to. And I think if you believe Michael, that you've got some valuable insight to share with someone, that it's working for you, that it may work for someone else. And it doesn't mean it's going to work for the 7.5 billion people on this planet, but someone else, one person, it may make all the difference in their life. And that's the very reason to share it. And so you may feel like because you don't have anything to necessarily prove it in your life in the sense of relationship working yet, that it's not worth listening to. And I would disagree, because I think there was some beautiful insight in what you shared. And I think a lot of people could take that insight and apply it to their life in some way. And I think that perhaps the reason why it hasn't happened yet, could just be timing. It could just be maybe the person that, is your other, like the lock to your key, maybe isn't ready yet themselves. Like, who knows? There's so many reasons why. It doesn't necessarily mean because you haven't figured it out. I don't know. Like those are my many 2 cents on it.
I think, we judge ourselves way too much. There's so many rules that we don't even realize are rules and beliefs that we have from society that are swirling in our subconscious mind, whether it be about, Brian and, I was married, 25 years. And then Brian and I met and boom, we got married kind of right away. A lot of people have, opinions about that, of like why that's right or wrong, or it is going to work out or it isn't going to work out, or why you should have done that or shouldn't have done that, and I just say, fuck all the rules. Like, if it feels right to you, whether, and you feel right about what you're doing right now, Michael, or you feel like you've learned a lot and that's a positive thing, then you should share it with someone. And whether it fits society's rules or not, if you don't have a relationship to back it up right now, or, whatever it is, do what's in your heart. If it feels good.
It's not necessarily about the relationship. I couldn't give a rat's ass about this relationship part, but like, it's like you mentioned something like that resounded in my mind, is like, my biggest problem, I guess, with you two, both of you guys, is that I care for you so much as friends that, like, when you say stuff to me, I instantly want to believe it. When I actually believe what you have to say, and I go back and do my own, like, studies, and I find out that some of the stuff you say is just so, in my opinion, I guess, not true. It really detracts from, like, okay, Michael, be careful. Don't believe everything they have to say. And then everything you have to say that's positive to me, it has like an asterisk to it with a be careful, because not everything they say is true. And I have been burned on these episodes before. And Nicole knows this, about what is true and what's not true. And so, like, I really would love to live in the Nicole and Lisa religion of what you guys believe in, but I cannot, because there's so much that I have to question, because there's so many times where, like, we could go down the rabbit hole and we could go down the rabbit hole together and believe it all, or somebody says, whoa, hold on, what's going on? And this is what I love about having Brian on the show, because sometimes even I get wrapped up in this rabbit hole and could go down a rabbit hole that I shouldn't go down without Brian saying, whoa, Mike, what's up? Hold on.
Yeah, I'm way too big to go down a rabbit hole. But, I heard something really interesting about, what you said when you were describing this, and that's you failed 6 times. And people that know me know that I love quotes. It's actually how I met my wife, with a quote. But Thomas Edison, I think one of his most famous quotes, he was talking about how many times he tried to make the light bulb, the monofilament light bulb. And he said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I just found 1,000 ways how not to make a light bulb. And it's just a shift in perception to not look at, I've failed 6 times at being in a relationship. No, you've found 6 people out of 7 point something billion that you're not compatible with.
That's a cool way of thinking about it. That's awesome.
And also, Michael, just because there have been things that I've heard my entire life and I'd be like, yeah, hear it all the time. Yeah, I guess it might work. And then, 10, 15 years later, all of a sudden I really understand it. Like I can really grasp it and all of a sudden it's true. And all of this time I was like, I don't know if I believe it. And, it's just because you don't believe it now doesn't mean it may not be true for you later on. And I'm not saying that that's always the case, but I'm saying we talked about this in the last episode. What's true for Lisa and I isn't true for you right now because, one of the reasons could be is that you're just not at that level of being able to understand.
Okay, you gotta be careful with those words. I mean, you just make me think I'm not ascended to the level you guys were at.
I agree. That's how it sounded.
Okay, but I'm not talking
you're not at that 4th degree, 5th degree that we're at. So you can enjoy your three degree, and maybe you'll come up to us. Maybe.
No, okay, you have to. I'm gonna be very honest with you. Lisa and I have done a lot of work. We've put in, we've been doing this since we were teenagers, and so we're going to understand certain things at a different level than someone who hasn't put in all that work.
Wow. Okay.
It's not about we're better or and the other person's less than. It's just a matter of, if someone studies math for 15 years and someone's just starting within their first year, obviously the person who's 15 years into it is going to have more experience and understanding of the subject, right?
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Michael?
I mean, what do you want me to say? Is you say
yes
you
or no?
This for 15, 20 years, but
you're turning this into a I'm better than you, you're less than me kind of a thing. And that's not what I'm trying to portray. I'm trying to simply make a point that, when you start to open your mind more and more and more, you're allowing other things to come in. And sometimes it takes a while for certain seeds to, after they've been watered, to actually start to bloom into something. And it doesn't mean that, where you're at is less than. It's just that to me, it's just.
So Nicole, here's the problem. You guys, I respect what you just said about how you and I guess Lisa that you're clumping Lisa with you. I've learned a lot, but the people you introduced me to, certain people of them, not true at all. And so when you introduce me to people that speak falsehoods, I got a problem. And when I have a problem with people that speak falsehoods, then I got a problem with the people that introduced me to the people that spoke falsehoods. So you could sit there in a situation and say, we have been studying this forever, Michael. You should trust us. But I'm going to sit there and say, you know what? I'm going to take my time and literally think about this for quite a while because I'm not going to fall for all this shit all at once.
Okay, first of all, I didn't say you should trust us. You should never just trust us. I never said that. What I'm saying is that at some point where you're at right now could evolve into something else later on that you totally believed right now wasn't true. That's a possibility.
I will give you that.
There's so many things that, through the years of this journey and that I've learned later on to be true that I just couldn't wrap my head around in the earlier days. And there are also things that spontaneously just make sense and I understand right away. And so for you, I feel some of the things that you shared today, I thought were very insightful in ways I haven't looked at it before. And so you get to teach me. And that's what I think is the beauty of this all is that we're always teachers and students and we're always learning from one another. And to always remember that we honor everyone where, we talked about this in the last episode, how what's true for you may be different for me, but I honor where you're at in your journey and that it's your truth. And likewise, you may or may not honor me for where my truth is.
No, I agree with you.
So I know that it came across that way, that I was making it seem like Lisa and I are better than, and that wasn't my intention at all. It was just to kind of like state that, you know, like what's the guy who wrote the book, The Tipping Point? Malcolm, anyways, The Tipping Point, where it talks about like, you know, people become like masters at something when they put 10,000 hours into a thing. So, you know, like it's just obviously the more time you spend on doing something, usually the better you get at it or more experienced you are. So,
Malcolm Gladwell.
That's it.
For those who are interested.
That's it. Thank you, Brian.
I looked it up.
Thank you. So, but you know, like I really do hope that you give your own self more credence, because I think that you offered a lot of valuable insight today that many people will benefit from. And I think we tend to devalue our own learning that comes outside of an institution because we don't have anything to back it up other than like what we believe.
You know what, just as a side subject, and it may not relate to the subject that we're talking about, but they're saying that, well, I heard an article today that a lot of the problems that we have within our own United States of America is that we are so like trigger wanting, meaning like we usually have a war to focus on somebody we hate. But currently, we don't have that. When we don't have that to currently look outside our borders, guess what? We look within our borders. And we start thinking, you know what? My neighbor, fuck him. I hate him or her. And that's what happens when we get, I guess, trigger happy in the United States or trigger happy in any country. It's like when you get to the point where like you just have so much, this really does speak to the core thing that we're talking about tonight. It's like when you have some sort of reason to hate or want to hate, you turn against each other. And I feel like, I guess if I could bring it around and wrap it around to saying, try not to think that way. Try not to think about hate. Try not to think about why you dislike the other person. Try to think about what you have in common and what you have goal-wise in common with the other person. It's going to happen well because we get too trigger happy. And if we don't get too trigger happy with a country in mind, we turn on each other, which is what's happening right now.
Are you talking about random? Us in our podcast or like in the country?
In the country, I mean, like even recently, it's like you're Canadian, but you live in the United States most of the time, Nicole. Some of the time, 6 months of the time, but the rest of us live in the United States, and I feel like the rest of the United States has been conditioned to have somebody that we are supposed to hate. The media tells us we're supposed to hate this person or these group of people. And if we don't have another country to do it, like Vietnam, like Russia, like China, we're going to turn within ourselves. And since we haven't had such a huge war to focus our negative energy on a different country, we start focusing it on each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Lisa, are you whispering something, Lisa?
Oh no, it wasn't me, but there is a war in Afghanistan right now.
Yeah, and nobody knows it because it doesn't make the news.
It used to.
It used to. Yeah, it used to. But what's the noise now? What's the news now? What's the war now? Hollywood, celebrities, politics. Nothing to do with Afghanistan, unfortunately.
One more reason why people should stay away from mainstream media.
No, okay, but
Absolutely.
He's bringing up a really cool point though that speaks to what's actually happening is it's actually a good thing, Michael, because it's bringing it closer and closer to home. And pretty soon people are gonna start to realize that they can't be looking outside of themselves like Lisa said earlier, the change has to come from within first. And so we start looking around, like, are we going to continuously be at odds with one another? Or how do I change this? Because when it's far away from home, it's really easy. But when it starts to get messy right in your backyard, that's where you're constantly faced with it.
I feel like it's starting to get messy in our backyard.
It is. It's definitely getting messy.
Not physically, but it's starting to get messy.
But like I said, the only way to actually have change is if we start being the models for that change.
All right. Fair enough.
So, which is what it's perfect because it's exactly what the whole podcast was about, right? When we first started this. So it's about putting into action, not just talking about how we all like the world to be a better place, but actually being it and doing it. So I think that was great.
That's all I think. I mean, that was some of the original thoughts I thought when it comes to the topic of the conversation that we are supposed to be talking about. It's just like, I just feel like I don't know. I just get to this point where like I get along with so many people, including my liberal friends that may not agree with me in a lot of things, but we're famously awesome together. And it's like, I wish the world worked that way. That's it. Signing out.
Well, if you can prove that,
Can't prove much.
No, if you're able to get
we're gonna wait for we're gonna wait for Brian's proving to see what happens.
But aren't you gonna do the same thing? Aren't you doing it with someone for 2 weeks?
Brian?
No, it's you, Michael.
Oh,
yeah,
me?
She was
What?
asking you.
She was asking you.
What am I don't know anybody enough to know that I would throw some light at them for 2 weeks.
Didn't you just say you were going to do that?
You were going to do it from a point of relationship. You were going to think about
Oh, God. What did I wrap myself into?
somebody that you could send some love energy to, and hopefully her heart turns towards you.
In 20 minutes a day, meditation?
For 2 weeks. Where have you been?
Jesus. That's like 140 minutes a week. That's 280 minutes of...
Okay, can I just make an observation here? That whenever we're really uncomfortable with something and we really don't want to do it, it's a good indication that we probably should be doing it.
That's 5 hours of my life meditating to something that could... All right. What do you want? All right. Yes, I'll do it. I'll figure out something, but I'll do it.
Okay. All right. Well, Brian and Michael are going to math and science their way to their feelings. So we're looking forward to that. So before we wrap it up, I just want to let all of our listeners know that we are accepting your applications to be on the show with us. And we are looking for some of our listeners who would like to join the conversation with us on one of our episodes. So send in to info@enlightenup.us your full name, why you'd like to be on the show, and some of the questions that you would be asking us. And we're going to choose a couple people to come on the show with us at the end of February or early March. So that's about it. I think this was a great conversation. I am looking forward to the data that will come forth from Brian and Michael. But more so, I'm actually just looking forward to the fact that you guys are going to do something outside your comfort zone. I'll be honest. That's what I'm actually most excited about.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Good talk. Thanks for being on with us, Brian. Always enjoy having you with us. I know Michael does.
I always enjoy being here.
All right, everyone. Have a good night. We'll chat next time.
Bye.